Hey y'all, welcome to Wake Up, Wake Up. I'm your host, Heidi Hite, and today is a very exciting day, not only because it is Valentine's Day, but because Pam White is here to talk to us. Pam White is an animal communicator. She is a life coach, a painter, a photographer, a poet, and she is the founder of Insight Coaching. So let's go ahead and bring Pam White on. Okay, Pam White. How are you? Welcome to Wake Up, Wake Up. Thank you for coming on.
I'm glad to be here. I'm woken up.
I believe that you are. Pam, so I actually found you in this book, Communicating with Animals.
You did?
Have you read this book?
Um,
Arthur Myers
no.
mentions you in here. And
I should write that down or something. No. Arthur Myers. Okay.
It's called Communicating with Animals, the spiritual connection between people and animals. And so I was reading about that, and that's why I messaged you, and because I'm very interested in learning the process of how to communicate with animals, and in reading these books, I found there's a many animal communicators that I was not even aware of, and it's so interesting. And then I looked at your site, and you do so many different things. And would you like to tell the audience what it is that about yourself, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I started out as a writer and a photographer, and then I had an accident with my finger that pushes down my right index finger, and for 3 years I couldn't do any photography. Having things on the end of your finger is really painful. So I started painting. And in the meantime, I had gone to, a friend of mine who had gotten me through my photography said, there's this animal communicator who wants to meet with you. And I was like, okay. And so she said, yeah, she's in North Carolina or something. I forget exactly where Kate was then. So I went to.
Oh, is it Kate Riley?
Yeah, it's Kate.
Also in here. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize, but
yeah, no. So I went to her house, and I walked in, and this dog came toward me, and I went, Brownie. That was the dog I had when I was a kid. And it's a terrible, terrible story because Brownie was this wonderful dog who my parents were not. I think one of the reasons I miss animals and everything is my parents were like, animals stay outside and we kill them if we want to. We bring them into our lives if we want to. If we don't want them anymore, we get rid of them. I'm like, this doesn't work for me.
No.
This is not okay. And so anyway, I walked into her house and there was her dog now, but it was a reincarnation of my dog. And she looked at me and she said, yeah, he knows you. And this one over here needs to teach you a lesson, which was horrible. Sometimes it's horrible to get lessons, you know. And her name was Joy. And she'd been found, you know, in a ditch. Every animal has a story like that. And she came to me and she kept leaping into my lap and licking me. Well, I just hated that. And Kate said, yeah, you need to work on that. So Joy and I became friends, and her Brownie was now named something with a B. I'm not gonna remember, but anyway. So and in the meantime, I was still painting and photographing people and stuff. And one of the things that happened with my coaching business was that in my photography, people would call me up, and they would call me up for things like they wanted help burying their dog, they wanted help dying. I'm like, okay. I mean, this is not something I put, you know, like on my resume. I help people die. But things come to me sometimes. Like one time I was going into someone's house and there was a blue jay and he was obviously dying. So I picked him up and he died, and then I went on, carried on. So things like that happen. And that's when you, in your email, when you said, I just want to know, I want to be open to messages, I think you said. And that's all you need to be, is open to messages. Just be open. See, you know, so I saw, I mean, maybe people wouldn't have seen the blue jay. I don't know. I saw the blue jay. And anyway, so in my photography work, I ended up helping people get into programs, helping them get over something or into something, whatever. And I realized I was letting them see through my photography a part of themselves that they could not see. And I felt like I could add to that by helping the process instead of just being a photographer. So I do face-to-face, all kinds of coaching, whatever you want to call that. And the other thing I do that I think is really cool is called transformational video, where I video you talking about what you want to do, what you're doing, whatever your thing is. And then I play it back to you while I'm there so that I hold the space. And people they've literally transformed. They'd see themselves and they were like, oh my God, I know now why this poor person, I've been pushing her around and making her go to these things and joining up. And I just made her spend $1,000 on this course that I'm certified in, and I don't want to do it. And so they found themselves in ways that they couldn't. And I had known that because I know that about the camera. I actually when I was 8, I started photographing, and I stopped when I was in my 20s because I realized it was what they say about the camera captures the soul. And I felt too fragile my own self to participate in that because that's what I saw. But when I was later on, I was no longer afraid to participate and kind of bring it on. And so, and also I started meditating in 1980, maybe. And I do Vipassana meditation. And that helped me be a vessel for just about anything.
When you meditate, how do you get into your meditation?
I just concentrate on the breath. The rules that I keep are, whether I meditate for 5 minutes or 5 hours, I decide that's my intention. This is what I'm going to do. And then I do it.
Okay.
No matter what, no matter if I'm feeling horrible or if I remember the cat litter and the errands and things like that. Because that's the main thing when I teach people how to meditate. I said, if you meditate for a minute or an hour, it doesn't matter. It matters that you meditate. Because you can meditate for 5 hours and not, I mean, I've done that. I've been really good at that. So that's why I meditate. It's just really doing it. And that's training the body, because the mind creates the body. Basically. I have a friend who's a body-mind centering person, and she said the mind is the wind and the body is the sand. So you know how wind moves around sand.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I keep to that. And sometimes if I know I can't handle, because even after all this time, I'm just like everybody else. I can't keep, a thread going sometimes for even a minute. And when I'm like that, sometimes I do a guided meditation, and I have a lot of people that I listen to, apps I have, everybody has an app. So, and then I use that as kind of a fallback so that I have some support. Because what I notice, particularly among women, and particularly among strong women, of whom I lay, I think I'm part of, is that we think we can do everything. We think we don't need anything. We think we can just do it. You know, the Helen Reddy song of I can do this and I can do that and I can do that. It's true. We can. I did that for years, holding up everything. Because I've had a lot of life experience at juggling. and so creating a space in ourself. Yeah, that's the thing, in ourself. Like, I have a couple people I'm helping, they want spirituality. I said, great, that's great. But spirituality is the relationship of you to yourself. It's not you to me. It's not me coming and helping you. I can come and help you, but that's not spiritual. You will be doing the spirituality. And they were like,
It's in that bridge inside instead of with other people.
Yeah, because everything's an inside job.
Right.
I don't think there's I don't think there's an exception.
That's beautiful. That's true. And it's interesting because the more you work on yourself, if you shine the light on the shadow inside of you, then it amplifies. But then also afterwards, the healing amplifies.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
and I get a little taste of that, then you're like, oh, let me go in deeper. That's right. Amplified better.
Yeah. Yeah. I took a vow many years ago just to relieve suffering in the world. That was what I got to when I first started the first 10 years of my meditation practice. I realized that I had changed myself from a person who suffers to a person who has access to enjoyment, pleasure, fun, things like that. I thought I was having those things, but I realized I was always sort of looking behind. I was totally self-conscious. You know, how is this going? How's that going? What am I doing? Who am I? Someone would ask, well, what do you think about that? Oh, I don't know. What do you think about that? You know, I'd put it off to somebody else. So all that stuff comes to, here I am, and this is it.
So can I ask you, you say all you have to do is receive the messages when you're talking about speaking with animals. And so,
yeah, I made it sound easy.
That sounds very easy because I have I live with my brother right now, and we live in a house together, and he forbids animals inside. So he loves animals, just not inside. And so at the moment I don't have any animals, but there were these street kittens, and one day they just decided one of them was my cat, and he sleeps under my door, and he just if I go for a walk, he just follows me around, and he's like, you're my human. And so, you know, I practice when I read in this book, they're like, calm your mind. Sometimes you can speak to them in pictures. And so I imagine a light going over and dropping into them. But then, and then they turn around and meow, meow, meow. But I still have no idea what they're saying. But I would like to know. And I sit there just kind of, sometimes I try to meditate, and it's like, because it could come in different ways, not always just pictures, or it could be.
Yeah, they're all different. I mean, animals are like us. They lie, they manipulate, they are real, they are spiritual, they are crass. Yeah, I once had a dog tell me that she had puppies, and it was in one of Kate's classes. And so I said, oh, okay. And you know, we were all supposed to talk to the dog and then come back and say what we said. And you were talking to somebody whose dog was there. So I said, well, she has puppies. And she said, no, she doesn't. I said, well, she told me she had puppies. She doesn't have puppies. She wants puppies. So that was my first dip into the animals are more like us than we think. Mm-hmm. You know, the range of emotions. I mean, I often find animals they're subject to our emotions for sure. And they get changed by our emotions. So an animal will sit there, any kind of an animal. You can do a chipmunk or a golden retriever or something. And you can say the animal has this big view, and they life and death are equal and everything. They're equanimous about everything, and they're gonna, they're kind of like the song, what's his name? Everything's gonna be all right,
Mhm.
And but they can get corrupted by us. If we're like, don't die, you have to be with me, then they'll be like, okay, I don't want to die. And they'll hang on. They
Uh-huh.
won't let go.
Right.
So they're just, so we have this connection. And I include like trees and everything that is living, and everything is living. Even this desk that I've had for 40 years is sitting there vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I can't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
The human, the human crust keeps me from too much knowledge, because I would go into a synapse, I would convulse if I heard everything that was going on out there. So you want to create pathways in you that will allow you to listen to as much as you can.
And how does one create a pathway? Do you just sit there and you kind of like kind of watch your breathing and then just sit quiet, or?
Yeah, I prefer, because I'm a meditator, so that's always my go-to place. But even if you're not a meditator, you don't have to be a meditator. I just think being a meditator makes everything easier, period.
I agree.
So, so I just go there. But yeah, get still with yourself and watch yourself. You're asking this animal to tell you something, and maybe you don't even know what's on your own mind. Maybe you're responding to something in your life that you think is true that isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're under the impression. I remember at my first retreat, I always thought, terrible childhood, all that sort of stuff, but I was always blamed for everything. So I was assuming that everyone in the room, the other 100 people, were blaming me, or, if I went through a door too fast, or I wasn't a good meditator or something like that. And then at the end, you did silent retreat, so you can't say anything. You can't go, oh my God, I'm so sorry I did that. My mother, blah, 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 and my father, and I had this horrible experience when I was. You can't do that. That all just has to sit there with you. And then at the end, people would come up and say, wow, you inspired me, or you did this and did that. So I had to let go of this thing where everybody's against me, nobody likes me, everyone's just waiting for me to go home, so
All belief systems.
all those belief systems. So if you don't know your own belief systems, if you don't know what's in your own body, mind, heart, you're not going to be able to talk to anybody. And you haven't been, even though you think you have, because you read the newspaper and you can discuss what happened, and you can teach people whatever you're doing, and you can make, I don't know, trinkets or anything,
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not doing it, so you have to open those pathways to listen to yourself first.
Okay. That's wonderful. What was the first time, when you said the first time you talked to the animal, how did you know that you were talking to the animal? That you received confirmation? That how do you receive the messages?
Well, I mostly do words because I'm a writer and things like that. So I do words, but I'm also a visual artist. Those are my work. That's my work behind me.
It's beautiful. I love those things.
Thank you. There we go. There's me.
I love them. The horse.
And what was I saying?
The first way when you communicated.
Yeah. So I found it was easier for me, and I heard words, but I had a dog who saw pictures, and I was trying to get him to understand. I've rescued a lot of greyhounds, and a lot of them, they come off, they're very nervous, and they're very like, oh God, what am I doing? And they walk in. A couple of them were just like, guys, come on, go, guys, go. Here we are. This is a field. It's a world. And one of them, when I showed him to run away and then come back, he did that immediately and he was taught. That was it. Others, I had to like, okay, now you come back. And I'm just thinking in my mind, now you come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because for some reason, and this is kind of, I don't know why, there's no language barrier. So I speak English. I have a couple of Spanish dogs. I had a couple of Russian cats. They're no longer with me. But you don't need to speak. I mean, although they will recognize, if you say, anyway, pretty, something, is que bonita or something like that. And they'll go, because they'll know the words. They do have language. They have vocabularies.
Mm-hmm.
They have to whisper, going O-U-T, going for W-A-L-K. I never say those words. But that's not really that's not answering your question yet. I haven't answered your question yet. So I think for me, it just slowly crept on me. It's been like this since I was little. And I haven't always known, but I've seen my connection with animals. I grew up in the country. So I would come home from school and this dog who was stray, and I live way in the country. I grew up near on the Missouri River, actually.
Oh, wow.
And feel, talking nobody. Okay, so this dog, he would see me and he would come, and he was there every day at the time that I came home from school. And then when I had to go in, he would go. And he was, somebody who's what quote unquote stray dog. And there were things like that there, and they weren't scary or anything, And then I slowly got to kind of doing it in a way where I was more in charge.
Okay.
It wasn't just the bird or the thing coming to me. I could put it out. And I think really I didn't probably think about it until I met Kate, where she called me to come, turned out. And she somehow knew me. She had intuited me. So some people I don't consider myself like really good that way. Mm-hmm. I'm really good at and this is also true in my coaching. So what I do with my coaching is I have you just talk, mm-hmm. and I listen. I'm a really good listener. And I find the words and I go, oh, well, what do you mean by this word? And what does that mean? And by doing that, I show, or you get to see how you think, more than if I just accepted what you said and said, well, by what you say, blah, blah, blah. And the same with the animals. I think I just, over time, like you're having with your cat. Mm-hmm. You're the example, right? Mm-hmm. You said, I can't do animal. I don't know what this talking is, but you're talking to the animal. Mm-hmm. You're responding to each other.
Right.
So that's it. You define that.
I agree, but I feel like sometimes they're specifically asking me things and I don't understand.
It takes time. You just have to, and you can ask yourself, okay, so I apply a little kinesthesiology in it. You know that, I'm sure you do. And I have, because I don't like to be seen to do anything, I have made a way, so I use my body as a pendulum, and a lot of other people do that. So I'll be at a grocery store, I'll just take I used to in the old days before COVID, I would take something in my hand and look at it and say, is this good for me? Is this good for me? Is this going to do it? And I would either go back or forward, and then I just put it back. So people looking at me, I don't know, all that sort of stuff, because I don't want to make a spectacle of myself. Because in my family, the Russians always say the peacock gets the axe. And if you were visible at all in my family, something would happen. So I and maybe that helped my
right to go in.
My connection, my going inward. That may be the whole reason that I do that, or why it's something that's easy for me. I don't know.
That's funny because I go to the grocery store too, and sometimes people will be like, "Oh, you have to check out this food." So I always pick up the box to see what's on the ingredients because I try to be vegan as best as I can.
Right.
And but sometimes I'll just hold it and it just has this negative energy to it. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And then I'll see my friends like, "Did you try that food?" I'm like, just didn't feel right. They're like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "What do you mean? How do you not know what that means?"
Right. That's all you need. That's it. You're doing it. And that's the thing. Most of us have this. I think everybody does personally. I don't want to argue about it, so I say most. But I think truly everybody can do this.
I believe that everyone can do it too. It's just something that society hasn't shined a light on. And it should, I would love that. I would have loved to have a class when I was younger. I was like you, I would always bring home stray animals all the time. I would just find animals. My mom's like, "Where do you find these animals?" Because I live in the city. It's not like
Right.
I was walking in the country. And the animals would just come find me, like yourself. And so, and then I'm like, "Oh, is this my new friend?" And I got my dad to turn our little doll house into like a chicken house, and I put all the chicken ducks in there. And then
Oh, that's cool.
until they start, one of them was a rooster and started, singing too loud early in the morning in the middle of the city, and then we had to get rid of the chickens.
Right. Yeah, that's what happens to the rooster.
Yeah. They're like, "You're gonna take the rooster to a very nice home."
Yeah.
It was like years later, I'm like, "Oh, you ate that?" Right? Yeah. Obviously, it's still we've been waiting to tell you for a long time. But I
So just trust in yourself. See that, and that's what meditation will do for you. You may have already experienced that. You can trust yourself more, just like you say with the supplements. You read the ingredients, and maybe you're really reading the ingredients, maybe you're not, but you can sense them. You can sense what something has resonance with you. That's all it is.
what's your feeling on soy? Anything made with
There's
soy?
no thing about anything in particular. If you're asking me, does soy good for you?
I don't know.
It's not good for me. I'll
It's
tell
not
you
good.
that.
I feel like it's not good for me either. But
I
I
would go with that. It's a very harsh thing. It's a kind of a fake food.
yeah.
It
It just doesn't feel
soy,
right.
soy in Japan is fermented, which is a whole other thing. We
Oh,
don't do that for some reason.
uh-huh.
And I did I was a vegetarian for 10 years. I'm not, that's past tense, because for my particular body, I was sick. I got really sick, and now I can't eat a lentil. I'm allergic to anything pea protein, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I can't do anything. I'm not saying that's about you, because we have
Protein.
obviously very different bodies,
Uh-huh.
but there's nothing per se about soy, except I have to say it is a highly, produced, processed rather, processed food that has, that's not really good for you. Like you should, don't like to say the word should, but it's good if all the nuts and seeds and things you eat could be soaked and sprouted and dried, and then you eat them.
Uh-huh.
So to the extent that I can, I do that. I eat a lot of walnuts, and I always soak them and stuff like that. It's like the spinach thing and the kale thing. If you eat too much raw kale, and I think raw spinach too. I can't pronounce the things. I can see the word, but
Mhm.
the things that they keep your body, if they build up, they keep your body from taking in a lot of nutrients.
Do you think from juicing? You get that from juicing also or not?
Again, it depends.
Oh,
Tell you what you juice.
right. I
But
always put kale. Well, I don't always put kale, but kale and spinach, I do it a lot as one of the bases.
and that may be better juiced than not. I don't know how many of those things you escape by juicing, because you will escape some of them.
Uh-huh.
And the juicing, if you're doing kale and spinach and things, the only problem with juicing that I would have an Uber thing about is the sugar. And you're not talking about that because most people do, oh yeah, I have a shake every morning and it has apples and blueberries and bananas and, you know, I'm like, okay, is there anything that isn't sugar in there?
I do have a protein shake, and I do put frozen wild blueberries, and I put a banana in there.
Well, blueberry and banana are pretty, if that's all you do, that's
Sometimes I
pretty
put
safe.
strawberries in there.
And if you put enough a good quality fat.
I put coconut water, and I've been using pea protein, but for some reason I feel like pea protein, because whey protein feels not okay to me. I don't know why. That's just for me. It might be okay.
Right. No, I mean, and that's what you have to go on. When
Uh-huh.
I was doing that, whey protein was okay with me.
Uh-huh.
But all those things have a drawback. You know, we are omnivores, so we should be out grazing on, you know, all kinds of peas and lettuce and grass and entrail. I mean, I can't deal with the liver and stuff like that. But when people used to
Uh-huh.
slow cook their bone things and have bone broth and all that sort of stuff, they were healthier.
I do feel that it's every once in a while I'll eat shrimp. I don't know why. I'll eat shrimp every once in a while. And I'm from Texas, so I love queso.
All right. Yeah.
It's hard for me to say no to queso. So I call myself a cheegan. I'm a cheating vegan.
I think, you know, to eat with an ideology, where's the idea? Show me the ideology in your body.
I just do whatever I feel at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, because when your body's your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing in meditation, you can suss that out. Like, is everything really okay or isn't it? And if you're eating for your ideology and not for your body,
Mm-hmm.
well, guess what?
That's right.
Not gonna work.
Yeah.
For a while. I mean, you're young, so I mean, see, I have less time to spend on on that, so I'm more careful now. I wouldn't bother being a vegan or I like eating. I don't like eating meat and everything, but my body wants it, so I eat it.
Yeah, I love the taste of meat. I just don't like how I feel right when afterwards. I just feel blah.
Yeah, well, that's what you can pay attention to. That's what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another place in you where you know how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I'll do the same thing though. That's interesting that you say that because I have a friend and we always kind of joke that, you know, if you make plans, well, right now that feels good, but then I always check in with myself, even if I have made commitment, and I try to always keep my commitments if it's important to the other person. But if my feeling feels way heavier than keeping my commitment, then I feel like there's a reason I should not go. And,
Mm-hmm.
and in that moment, my choice has changed. And I will call my friend. I'm like, sorry. And my friends know that I'm like that. So, you know, and so I just tell them, hey, I really wanted, my intention was to come, but I just don't feel like this is the best for me. So I'm going to stay home. Or, you know, and I say it in that way. And really no one ever is offended because it's about me and it's not about them.
Exactly. Exactly. I always tell people, if you follow your own things and it's your intention just to be you, you're not going to hurt anybody.
Right. And most people are like, wow. And I even had a friend, she said, that was the most liberating thing anyone has ever told me because you just came in with the confidence that we were both going to a party to one of we have a common friend. And, you know, and it was a party and she called me the day, what are you going to wear? I was like, well, I've felt it out and I'm no longer going to go. She's like, what are you going to tell her? I was like, I'm going to tell her just that I felt it out and I don't feel like I should be leaving. She's like, you cannot do that. And I just laughed. I go, watch me. And then I go, okay, I got to go. I'm going to go walk around the park. She's like, what? Because I wasn't making excuses of why I couldn't do anything. I was just, this is what I'm doing. And then, okay, I love you. Talk to you later.
That's called freedom.
Yes, exactly.
No, it really is. And most people don't have it because we're acculturated to not be like that. Because if everyone's like that, it's going to be a different world. I prefer that world.
Yes.
Where that's happening.
Yes.
And most people don't. And you're not doing it on a whim. I'm not hearing whim. I'm hearing a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
consciousness.
Mm-hmm. But you know, it feels good though, is because my friends know when I am with them, I'm 100% with them because I 100% want to be there. And I would rather have someone one time a week than someone 5 times a week, and they're this there that 100% versus someone that comes around
Absolutely.
and is about 80% there. You know, I'm just that's it for me. And so if I try to bring my full attention to where I'm at. And then if it's only, like you said, 1 minute or 1 hour or 5 hours, I don't think I've ever made it past.
You're completely underscoring my point, because you, in that moment, have truly been with yourself. That's a spiritual act. And you've read it and reacted to it. So that puts you, because when you say, when you feel like, I really shouldn't do this, but you do it anyway, you set up a bunch of, call them free radicals, call them whatever you want, but you set up a bunch of crap in your body that it has to deal with. So it's sitting there zinging around like a pinball machine with all this stuff. Like, well, she said this, and she's doing that. It's not going to help you focus.
Mm-hmm.
So you just gave the lesson.
Oh, thank you. You know, a lady once told me a long time ago, she was kind of my spiritual teacher, maybe when I was in my early 20s. And she was very, very psychic. Like you could ask her a question and it was, I only can remember maybe one time that she was not right. But the thing was, she didn't want to tell me what the answer was. She would always lead me down the path and help me figure it out myself. And so I had this big decision to make. And she goes, honey, haven't you learned by now? There's always, when you boil it down, there's option A and option B. She goes, now let's fill out option A, fill it all the way to the end as if it already happened. How does that feel? And so I filled it out. I go, okay. And then she goes, now fill out option B, fill it out all the way to the end. How does that feel? Now, don't even think about which one feels a little bit lighter. And I said, option A. She goes, there's your answer. And
That's
so
it.
then
That's
every
it.
time I would be like, no, give me what, but this is this, you know, and then,
Yeah, see, and that's a reflection of our culture. And right now we're in that, where we want to be told. We're in an authoritarian
uh-huh,
state right now.
uh-huh.
And we just want to be told. Not most of us don't,
But
but
it was
a
so
lot of people do.
liberating when I figured it out myself.
Yes. And liberation means you have to keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't rest, and so you can relax and rest and stuff like that, but you can't, you're not commuting. You're always here. And if you're always here, you're going to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make the choice. You're going to make the decision that you're supposed to make. And there's no one suppose. So I could go, what you need to do this. I mean, sometimes when I'm dealing with people, I do get downloads. And if I get a download, I'll tell them,
Mm-hmm.
and if but mostly it's just being true to yourself. And I always ask people, how does that feel inside? Where are you feeling this? What is it doing? Where is it going? Because in my experience, I did a lot of acupuncture when I was going through this process, and I could feel all the pathways. So when the needle went in, I would go, and I asked, I said, oh, is that pathway going down to my right big toe? And she was like, yeah, you got it. And so you kind of get it's like biofeedback, basically. I did that without being hooked up, to a machine. And I think that's available to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to be present with ourselves.
Amen. That's true. And a gentleman yesterday, he came, I saw him when I was working, and he had a bandage on his hand. I go, oh, what happened to your hand? He goes, oh, I have arthritis. And I just said, oh, you should try acupuncture for that. That could, clear up the blockages, and then you'll be fine. He's like, no, because it's right there. I go, well, it might be where you're feeling it, but it could be maybe starting here or here or here.
Sure.
Who knows where it is? And then he's like, I'll try anything. And so I gave him the number to this lady. She's this beautiful spirit, and she just wants to help people. And she just like, you can feel the light coming from her no matter where you're at. And just there's people you're like, oh wow, you feel good, and you just want to get closer. And I was like, what do? You feel good. I don't know what do you got going over there. I like it. And she's like, I do acupuncture. I go, of course you do. So so we'll see how that works out. But I haven't, I've only done acupuncture once or twice, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think that's important. What do you think about rolfing?
Oh, I think it's great. Now it depends on your body. I've been rolfed.
Uh-huh.
My body is really stiff. It's a mesomorphic body, so it gloms on a lot of muscles. I'm very strong, but I'm not flexible. And what my chiropractor told me, he said, but when you're older, and now I'm there, you won't have things, your joints won't get loose, they won't fall out. A lot of people, that's what they have. So I'm more flexible probably than I've ever been. And I'm still not the pose. Because when it's about the pose, I get injured basically. And if it's about strength, then I can use my strength to stretch. But if I'm using a pose to stretch, I'm going to get hurt.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think stretching is so important. It's a priority for every day, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with how you stretch.
Mm-hmm.
There are more yoga injuries than almost anything. It's a really funny statistic. I mean, I think it's a funny statistic because everybody's, oh, I do yoga. And what people also don't realize is yoga where it was born, it's a life practice.
Right.
It's not a class you take.
I have this one book called Hatha Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And
the guy doing
Euclidean.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
I love that guy. And so I've given this book to I have 4 little nieces and nephews, and it's like a green book, and he has it on the front like this on the back. And I think it's the ninja book because I tell them we're all ninjas. And so we sit in circles and we meditate. They're like, are we ninjas yet? I'm like, yes, we're ninjas in training. But I find it so interesting. I took a yoga class once and I'm like, this just doesn't, I try to get into it because everyone's like, oh, it's so good for you. But I would go to these yoga classes and I just like, I don't know why. I just don't want to do it. So I just wouldn't do it. And then I read this book though, and this book was different kind of yoga because he says, as you're breathing in now, put your consciousness in your heart space. Mm-hmm. Now breathe in, hold it for 2 seconds. Now breathe out and lean this way. And I go, well, this is way more fun because now I'm using my consciousness with the stretching. And then, once you do it so many times, and then it's just like a straight shoot. And I go, well, this makes a big difference. And I wish that they would teach that in different yoga studios. Some people I'm sure do. I haven't been to that many because the ones I went to just didn't resonate with me. But
you have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of yoga teachers, I hate to say it, but they've taken maybe 6 weekend classes.
And they're just not aware. They're not aware of the consciousness of where you put your consciousness to. And that you shine the light on and it's returning that trauma back to consciousness. And, and I just think, his story, Euclidean, I forget how to say it, Slovenian but he was in India, and he was a young boy, and he was very, very sick. Like he was always almost close to death. His parents wouldn't let him out. They wouldn't let him go to school. And so he was stuck in the house, and his dad had a huge library. And so he went in and he started reading all the books. And finally, one day they let him go to school, but they wouldn't let him play at PE. And that made him so he was just like, finally I'm at school, and then they won't let you play, and then they wouldn't let him play outside. And so he found this yoga book, and he read about all these yogis that had healed people. And when his parents weren't paying attention, he would sneak out of the house and he'd go look for a yogi. And he said it took him for a year, and he thought he'd do these things on his own. and then he would get real depressed when it didn't work. He's like, he read it and then he tried it and it didn't work. And then it would take him to even a deep depression that nothing's ever going to save him. I mean, he's this young boy figuring all this out, going through this like life trauma that takes us all like 40 years to get to. And so finally, one day he's out and he sees a yoga instructor and he goes up to him and he tells the guy, you know, tells him the story. My parents won't let me out. They think I'm sick, but you know, I don't have any money to give to you, but I will come every day and dedicate this time to you, you know. And the yoga instructors took him under his wing, and over the summer they met, and he developed. He has this young sickly person, and then he's like this very handsome teen boy at the end of the summer, but he's just doing these yoga postures, but he healed the inside and the outside, and the yoga instructor like taught him, you know, that if you can help change one person's life, then you have done your destiny. Mm-hmm. And he said, so he left India and he went over to Europe and he started the biggest hatha yoga centers, I think, over there. And his intention was just to, you know, help one person, but he helped so many people with his story. But I mean, he just lived it. He didn't believe it. He knew it. And so that was the difference. But I read about, have you heard of Elizabeth Hite? And she wrote the book.
Oh, the Hite report. No, yes? Which Hite?
Elizabeth Hite, Haich, Elizabeth Hite.
Oh, no.
Oh, it's amazing. One of my favorite stories. And this, and so Euclidean and Elizabeth were reincarnated together in Egypt, and they both remember their lifetimes. Now they both remember both each other and Egypt. And she was the daughter of like in Egypt, of a king, of a priest. And so it kind of tells her story when she was supposed to take over, but she wanted to be a priestess and learn the secrets of the inner side versus the outer. And so it's amazing. It's called Initiation. It's the story of her initiation back in Egypt, and he's there too. And so they remember each other, and then together they opened up all these yoga studios and wrote all these books together in this life.
That's cool.
I personally believe in reincarnation. I know a lot of people have different beliefs, but that's how I found him, because I always prayed that maybe if I was, you know, if I was meant to do yoga, then it would come on my pathway, and then I would resonate with it. Right. And then when I found Initiation, and then she talked about him, and then I started reading all his books, and it's just so you can just tell on the next level. But thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me, and you're such a beautiful soul, and everything that you do is amazing. I just think people who communicate with animals, I just think that's the most amazing gift, you know, because they're just such pure, loving little souls.
Yeah, they are.
And they're just sometimes they have feelings too. And so I always like, well, why are you upset? You can tell when they're upset. I'm like, oh, why is this dog upset? And I always like want to ask them, and then I feel frustrated because I can't receive the answer, because I feel like I'm letting the animal down, not helping them, you know? Yeah,
you have to get rid of that worry about letting anybody down, because that's a huge resistance. That's just like this mountain of resistance to doing it.
Thank you. That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, would you like to tell everyone how they can get a hold of you if they would like to do coaching lessons with you? It sounds really exciting what you're doing, and it sounds like you're helping people find their life path.
Sure. I don't know where this will show up.
But you can say whatever it is, and I'll type it in at the end.
Okay. So my website is pammwhite.com, and Pam White art, however that's spelled. And I'm always redoing my sites. I'm in the middle of redoing it, but it doesn't matter what you see, is whatever's up there. And
are you on Facebook?
Yeah, I do coaching, and you know, I remember now the dog's name was, Kate's dog was Bobo, and my brownie.
Oh.
And so, yeah, reincarnation. I mean, I've had one animal 3 times in this lifetime.
Wow.
And she died 8 years ago. So I said, I can't, I'm 78. So it's like, you know,
you do not look
not too many. Yeah. Well, I think I'm just a kid at heart. I mean, those are the numbers on the planetary,
That's right.
the Earth
That doesn't
style
mean that's what your
numbers.
cellular numbers are.
But my cellular number is, it was 27. I think it's gotten to about 35 now.
Uh-huh. Probably.
So yeah, I'm online, and I do a lot of different things because I like to. That's been one of the criticisms of me in the art world, or this world, or that world, whatever, because I enter them all. I'm just like, well, I'm here. And that's what I do. And if you think my art is too eclectic, or my coaching is too eclectic, that's me. That's what I do. So go with someone with a plan, because I don't have a plan for you. I'm just listening. I'm sitting here listening.
That's beautiful, because it kind of brings up this book called The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn, and she's
one of my favorite mentors. Yes,
one of my favorite people ever. I read her books all the time. I'm like, oh, thank you, Florence, you're so great. But your word is your wand, and what you're doing is listening.
Yes, absolutely.
How people say that. People, my friends are like, yeah, we're gonna do this, right? I go, I'm not agreeing with that sentence. I don't want anything to do with those words.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Oh, she's so great. In my hobby, I'm a filmmaker, and so that's one of my top to do is to make a really funny movie, Florence Scovel Shinn, but kind of to teach people that, because I think it's such a
nice.
She was such an amazing lady back in the day in New York,
Yeah, she was a powerhouse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She was just,
And that was a good time. There was there was so much happening from the 1830s to the 1930s, if you can take randomly you had Maria Montessori, Rudolf Laban, all these people with all these minds. And there's a guy in Emile Coué in France, who, when you've heard, I'm sure you know this phrase, and you know a lot of them, I'm getting better and better every day in every way. And that's attributed now to, I just saw, to Jose Silva, who's another great person. But Emile Coué was the guy who thought that up. And he gave people, let's see if I have one. He gave people, you were supposed to do it. I make these for people. So you make a little string. He said, and you could say it 21 times, however many. He had people say it 3 times a day, 21 times a day, 40 times, 100, depending on how sick you were. And you start, I'm getting better and better every day in every way. I'm getting better and better every day in every way. And so you can just keep this in your pocket, once again, so no one can see you.
Right. That's kind of what Florence Scovel Shinn did too, because she would give someone a little saying to say.
Exactly. And them. They were, I don't know that they ever cross-referenced or anything.
Their mind.
They could have. Yeah, their minds. They could have. I think they crossed over a few years. He in France and she, in New York. Yeah. I
like one of her sayings. I always say, I have a wonderful day in a wonderful way. This wonderful day has come to stay.
Yes.
Give you little things that were kind of rhymed and you could remember them.
But you see, if you do that, and there's, in the Buddhist thing, there's metta practice, M-E-T-T-A, which means loving kindness, and Pali, which was the Buddhist language. And it's a really simple, it sounds stupid, but it's like, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free from suffering. So if either you're upset or someone around you is upset, someone's getting mad at you or mad at something else, or they're driving horribly, you just go, oh, may so-and-so be happy, may they be peaceful, may they be free from suffering. And if nothing else, it calms you down.
Oh, sure. And the Ho'oponopono.
Yes, I do that. I love that. Ho'oponopono. Yep.
And so when someone comes around me and they're angry, I just say, sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you.
Please forgive me.
Over and over. I feel that ball of energy kind of like slowly.
That's one of the best things. And all those people, they just, our minds can dissolve our bodies like that.
And I imagine when I meditate in the morning, I try to, anyone who thinks of me, like if they're thinking maybe happy or not so happy of me, may they be bolted back with a bolt of love. I just send it back. Right, I'm still human. I'm not perfect,
Yeah, because black magic doesn't work.
No, so it's better just to send them light, because they're just forgetting who they are. So
exactly.
I always bless them, and I hope they find love, joy, and happiness in their hearts. Because I always just walk around and I heard Christine Marie Sheldon. Do you know who that is?
No.
And so she says, she goes, usually when I'm walking around, I'm like, I bless that light post. I bless that person right there. I bless that person. She goes, it's really good for them, but it's
Oh,
really good for me.
Marie Sheldon.
Christine Marie Sheldon. She has one of my favorite meditations that I do. And she teaches it really quickly, but it's pretty much.
Oh, no, I have it.
You do? Okay, good. I love her. Her meditation, she reminds of the white light coming through.
Yeah, right.
From the
No,
sky
I
to your
have
heart.
it. I was like, I think that's one of my more recent
Oh, I love her so much. And she's just always like, bless you, I bless you, I bless
Yes,
you.
right.
So I walk around the grocery store, I'm like, I bless that, because everything does have a vibration. When you send them love, even the books like, boop, sends you a little love right back,
That's it. That's it. Pam Grout is another one that I like.
Oh, damn.
If you don't know her, write that down because she's totally cool.
Okay, for sure. I love finding people.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like, she's saying that name, but I just hadn't, sometimes it takes a while to.
She's a great manifester. My two favorite manifestors that I like to help you kind of like meditate when you manifest and meditate is Dr. Joe Dispenza and Christine Marie Sheldon.
I am a total student.
I'm a total student too. I go to his classes.
Dr. Joe, I've been to so many things. Yes, I'm a advanced student of his.
Are you? I think in April there's a big thing in California, and one of my friends that she's like, "Are you coming?" She's like, she always like, "I saved you a spot." And so we get there early, and we're just like the biggest fan, like the fan club, like, "Oh, yeah. Dr. Joe." Yeah. But I tell everyone this story. There used to be a video, I can't find it anymore on YouTube, about Dr. Joe Dispenza's daughter, how she meditated and she manifested being in a music video, and then she manifested going to Europe to 4 different countries. Do you remember that story?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I do.
So his daughter was in college, and she told her dad, I want to go to these 4 countries this summer, and that's what I want to do. And she's like, and then I want to come, and I want to come back, and I want to spend 2 weeks with the family on the family vacation at a lake house or something, and then I want to go back to school. And he goes, okay, sure. And he says, I don't ever give them the money to help them to do that, but I teach them to meditate on them already having it, and they create it on themselves. And so every day he says, we made a commitment to each other. I would remind and wake her up, and she'd get up and she meditate on it. And so she did that, and it was like a couple of weeks in, and then she calls him, and she says, oh, Dad, you won't ever believe it. Like I got this grant, and they said they would give me $8,000 or whatever. And if I went up there and I could, but I would still have to pay $2,000. And he goes, okay, that sounds like you're on the right path, but we cannot accept this because this is not what you wanted. You wanted a fully paid, and you said, and she wanted to get paid to do it. And she's right. Like, this isn't it. We're close. And so she's like, are you sure? I can't pass up on this, And he goes, does it feel like everything you wanted? She's like, not yet. And he goes, okay. So another 2 weeks she meditated, and she was in French class, and she was speaking French. And another teacher heard her that was there from somewhere else and said, hey, do you speak fluent French? And he goes, oh my gosh, the French guy, one of the other teachers at her college, professor, said he's looking for an intern to take with him. And he's like, come with me right now. And so he takes her all the way across campus, and he goes, yeah, we're going to go to this country, this country, this country, everything that she said. I can't remember exactly because it's been a while since I heard this story. And then we're going to come back. And then she told her dad, I want to go back to Paris for 2 weeks because before I come back to hang out with the family, I want to hang out with my friends, or maybe it was like a week. And then he goes, and then we're going to end up in Paris for 1 week. And then you'll get to go home 2 weeks before you go home, school starts. And he goes, and it will be paid, and you'll be at my, and she's like, so she calls her dad, and you won't believe what just happened. And he goes, and I do believe it, because he goes, do you know how many phone calls, emails I get that says, you won't believe what just happened? He goes, because she did the right meditation, Yeah. And so I remember I played that story for everybody. But some people, they're like, what? I don't get it. And then some people are just, will go in and watch every single one of his videos. It's just where you're at vibrating, Yeah. There's no right or wrong way. But I mean, I just kind of put that story in a really short way. But it's so, and he has millions and millions of stories. But his daughter is, he says, the best man. Like, just she can manifest anything just really quickly. And so she's always teaching him. You know, because ever since they were little, he would, you know, he goes, I would buy them their school clothes and their whatever, their food and their groceries and things like that. But if they want anything extra, I would teach them how to manifest, to create it, to come naturally, so that they learned from a very young age to trust the universe is working with you. And I just thought,
trust.
yes,
That's it.
yes.
That's it.
And I just thought, why didn't I learn that when I was in class in school? I would have totally loved that class way better.
Yeah, because the teacher would have been fired.
Yes.
You can't tell the kids that.
You can't teach them to think on their own. But I think in the future, that's how I like to envision the schools, you know, are gonna, I feel like maybe it's a little bit of in a dark age right now, but I feel like since we're in the Aquarius age, that can only last for so much longer, and it's gonna shift.
Yep.
I believe it's happening really soon.
I do too. And I hope that,
I think this summer is going to be completely different than what's happening right now.
I think that's true. I think that's true. And I think you have a lot of intuition, and you don't need to do anything. You don't need to learn anything more. I mean, the thing about reading, I read all you want, stuff like that, because that, you know, that sparks things inside. Mm-hmm. So something you read outside or heard or whatever will support what's inside already. But it's like the Tin Man thing, you know, they all had what they wanted. The Wizard of Oz. I don't know. That's in my childhood. There was a lot. I think Wizard of Oz is kind of passe now. But
I mean, you can always. I love Wizard of Oz. I think everyone can always identify with that story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take much more of your time. I could talk to you forever.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And is there anything that you would like to leave with everyone? Maybe something that they could do, a tip you can give them that maybe they could do at home after they watch this to make them feel more happiness or joy in their heart?
Yes. So I'll put my finger on it. There's a thing I study with a T-Touch, Linda Tellington Jones. Do you know her?
No.
Oh, she's one of my great friends. So she has a style of touching, but this is just, it's called a heart hug. And you just put your hands on the lower part of your sternum, and you breathe in, and you make a circle and a quarter. Doesn't matter which way, counterclockwise or clockwise. And you rest it. And you do that again. Mindfully, you know.
Just one circle and then a half and then a quarter? No,
it's a whole circle and a quarter.
Okay.
So you go, if I started at 12, not so good at this, either 3 or 9, and then 6, and then 3 or 9, and then 12, and then one more.
Okay.
You do that 3 times.
12 to 3, yeah.
You know, with full just breath and constant, you know, because we're doing it now. It's a little fast and whatnot, but just really mindfully like that. And that will change your dynamic, because, you know, motion is healing. Movement is healing. So sometimes you can't move a whole lot, but you can do this. And this will support the cells. It'll bring light to the cells, which will allow them to expand and bring things to you. And also your lungs, either side, one side has 2 lobes and one side has 3, and your heart is nestled in them. So with each breath in and with each breath out, you are like giving the heart a little, you know, like what they call it in the swing, the baby, the baby swinging gently. And so when you're that's why it's when you're treating yourself harshly and using plastic, you know, which is fine if you're doing, I never did kickboxing, but I love to I like that. But when you're not doing kickboxing, if you're gentle and your breath, you allow your breath to go down and up and down and up. Most of us breathe, like to here and then up again. So that's the other thing. And with COVID, it's really important to have our lungs be involved. So you just take a breath in, and the yogis have tons of breathing, 4 in, 4 rest, 4 out, 4 rest, 8 in, all those numbers. And I do all those practices because also as you get older, your lungs, just everything naturally dries up. That's aging is drying. And so the more juice you put into yourself, the more light and the more consciousness. Consciousness is juice to the body. Consciousness of the body is like, so,
Well, that's beautiful because today is Valentine's Day, and
yes, the heart.
loving your own heart, because that's where it really starts.
That's it. There isn't anything else. You can't love anyone else if you don't love yourself.
That's
I know
right.
it's so tiresome to say, and people who don't love themselves, oh no, that's not true. And I'm like, yeah, it's true.
Because you will attract a mirror of where you're at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this was really great. Thank you so much.
Happy Valentine's Day. Thanks for spending an hour with me. I just love visiting with you so much. So we'll have to do it again sometime. I'm sure I'll have more questions. And if anyone would like to have a session with Pam White and ask her any questions, please email her, get a hold of her, go to PamWhite.com. And
Yep.
I'm sure, and do you have a Facebook or an Instagram or anything?
I do. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And I think Instagram, I think Facebook is Pam White. I know Pam White Art will get you a lot of places, pretty sure.
Okay.
My Facebook.
And then, all right. Well, thank you so much and have a great day.
You too.